Fields of Blood, an original screenplay by Mike Meade, first scene. Fade in, exterior, car, rural Midwest, day. Courtney, 20s, drives down the highway. Nothing but corn and wheat fields as far as the eye can see. The only car on the road. She passes an occasional dilapidated farmhouse. Interior, car, day. Courtney drives, radio cranked up. Steam pours from the hood. Temperature gauge is in the red. She pulls to the side of the road. Exterior, car, road, day. Courtney gets out of the car, walks to the front and puts the hood up. Steam pours out of the radiator. She leans against the car, pulls her cell phone out of her pocket. No service.
Shit.
She puts the phone back in her pocket. A car comes over the hill in the distance. She tries to flag it down as it gets closer. The car drives past.
Asshole!
The car slows and pulls over to the shoulder, then backs towards her. The passenger side door swings open. Cult leader sits in the driver's seat. His face is in shadow. Courtney smiles and slams the hood of her car shut.
Hey, thanks for stopping, mister.
Courtney climbs into the cult leader's car and closes the door. He pulls back onto the highway and drives off. Exterior, rural Midwest, town, night. A small town dimly lit with neon, set among rolling fields of wheat and corn. The only three businesses are a roadside diner, a service station, and a dingy one-level motel. A few small, run-down houses are scattered around. One large farmhouse stands out on a hill overlooking the town. An old barn and a grain silo sit near the farmhouse. A semi-truck with a trailer pulls over to the side of the road. It stops in front of the diner. Scott, late 20s, early 30s, clean cut other than a couple of prison-style tattoos, climbs out of the passenger side with a duffel bag. The trucker keeps the engine running.
You sure you want it off here? There's a bigger town, 40 miles up the road.
This'll be fine, thanks for the lift.
Suit yourself.
Scott closes the passenger door and waves as the semi pulls back onto the deserted highway. The diner parking lot is nearly empty. Scott walks to the diner and enters. Interior, diner, night. Scott stands inside. Bobby Jean, the waitress, 40s, trying to look 30, slightly trashy, serves coffee to Nicki, 20s, dressed in business casual, at a booth next to the windows. Earl, 40s, makes food in the kitchen. Music is playing on the 1950s jukebox in the corner. A bulletin board has many missing flyers, all for young women in their 20s.
Be right with you, hun.
Scott nods and turns to examine the missing flyers. The most recent flyer has a picture of Courtney on it. Bobby Jean comes up to the front counter and grabs a menu.
Just you tonight?
Just me?
Bobby Jean leads Scott to a booth next to the windows.
What brings you to these parts?
Just passing through, ma'am.
That's what I figured. All the good-looking ones are always just passing through.
Bobby Jean and Scott get to a booth. Scott slides his duffel bag into the booth and sits down facing Nicki's booth. Bobby Jean hands him the menu.
Thanks.
Can I start you off with something to drink?
Coffee would be fine. Black?
Sure thing, hun.
Bobby Jean winks at Scott and leaves the table. She walks into the kitchen. Scott looks over at Nicki. She looks up from her food and smiles. He smiles back, then quickly looks down and examines his menu. Bobby Jean comes back with the coffee, places a cup on the table and fills it up.
Know what you want yet?
Earl hacks up a loogie in the kitchen, spits.
Think I'll just stick with the coffee for tonight?
That's what I figured.
Bobby Jean collects his menu and walks up to the front counter. Scott drinks his coffee. Nicki finishes her food. She stands up and walks to the front counter. Scott and Nicki exchange a quick glance.
How was everything, darling?
It was good, thank you.
Nicki hands Bobby Jean some cash.
Keep the change.
Bobby Jean smiles. Nicki exits the diner. Scott watches out the window as Nicki walks to her car and gets in. She tries to start it a few times, but the battery is dead. Scott downs the last of his coffee. He unzips the duffel bag. A handgun and a bunch of cash is inside. Scott's hand brushes over the gun. He finds a $5 bill and pulls it out of the bag. Scott zips up the bag, picks it up, and walks to the front counter.
Leaving so soon?
Thanks for the coffee.
Scott puts the $5 bill on the counter and exits the diner. Bobby Jean picks up the $5 bill and stuffs it in her pocket.
Damn it, Earl. How the hell I get stuck with your sorry ass? Can't even make a decent cup of coffee.
You think you can do better? Well, why don't you come back here and cook? I'll serve the customers.
'Cause then we wouldn't have any customers, Earl.